Let's move on to Lizzie Enders. What's up with the Washington football team? Truth, lies, or shenanigans?
Truth and shenanigans, per usual. We are talking about another shame of the nation's capital.
Another
We
shame.
got, we got old boys still in the White House, causing a ruckus, pardoning everyone from the rooter to the tutor. Now we're going to talk about the mess that is known as the Washington football team. So yesterday, the Washington Post posted an article about Washington football team owner Dan Snyder and how in 2009 he made a $1.6 million payment to a young lady who was a former staff member with the Washington football team who accused him of sexual harassment. Now, again, this was in 2009, not to be confused, not to be outdone with the Washington Post article that came out in July that talked about 15 female staffers with the Washington football team who alleged sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and verbal abuse from various Washington football team executives and staffers. So, first and foremost, my question to you all is what the hell is going on in Washington? Or we could say Landover, because the stadium is in Landover, the facilities are in Landover. I think the headquarters is in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the Washington football team. We're the DMV, so we take on all of it. Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. So what's going on, y'all? What's going on, y'all?
So how big are you guys into football? Bobby Rock Gianni?
I know about football, but I'm not into football.
But I'm with Johnny.
So just to give you a little bit, Washington football team in DC is huge. It's huge. It's
Yes.
I mean, you could compare it to, because DC is a very small city, but we do have four major sports, and for all intents and purposes, the football team has been the most popular, the most successful. And so people take pride, and we're not talking about those Bama ass Dallas fans. We're talking about true Washington football fans. They take pride in their football team. And so to have these constant stories about sex and sexual assault with the owner and all of this stuff, on top of just changing the name of the team from the offensive Redskins, to Washington football team. But now we see that there was a bigger story looming over that.
So
What do you say? What say you?
I'll
The
give
way
my
that
I
thoughts
didn't
real
even
quick.
know that they were the Redskins. I didn't know they changed. That's interesting to me. I didn't even know that. That's why I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, Washington football. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's
Oh, you thought it
interesting.
was something different.
I thought you said
Yeah.
Redskins.
Wow.
They officially changed the name. I believe it was either spring or early summer,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
sounds about right. Oh,
I'm
so
not. I'm not.
my thoughts. I think. I mean, this has been looming for a while though. These uh
Hmm.
these allegations of
Yeah.
sexual misconduct, and I think it was part of the reason that they decided to change the name was to kind of
Yeah.
take some of
Yep.
the spotlight off of that. They were like, oh, let's just do it because this Dan Snyder. But I'm with Thaxton. I mean, I wish we could get rid of Snyder because obviously the culture comes from the top down. So, Dan Snyder establishes the culture, he hires the people for that culture, and then it just, it trickles down. It's usually not a trickle up effect. Um, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you
What's
brought up
going
the
on
culture.
though?
The
Sorry.
way
Go
that
ahead,
the
Rob.
article was written was that other executives and staffers were in on the harassment. And when I dove into it, Liz, some articles corroborated 15, some said 15 to 25 individuals have come out. And typically, the way that these stories work is, it takes one to come out and then the multiples start coming out. So if this is a cultural thing that's been bred from the top down into other executives and other staffers, what's deemed as acceptable in the workplace, I'm glad that these women are speaking out. And I'm not glad about the settlement out of court. I would prefer that this sees the way goes through the process in court so that the proper charges are laying against the people who are the offenders, because it's just not right. It's unconscionable that this is still happening in this day and age.
Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say in.
No, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead,
Johnny,
Johnny.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, in light of this whole Me Too movement, it's interesting that, well, I'm honestly not surprised about like somebody as big as Snyder getting caught up for that, but it's just interesting that they did a settlement instead of making it public, like in light of the Me Too movement, and you know how much people are giving support to that. So it just makes me feel like maybe that's dying out, or maybe that's not working for the victims of whatever crimes, sexual assault that's going on. Yeah.
Well, so this, if I'm not mistaken, so this settlement happened in 2009, so which means that the charges probably first came about in 2007, 2008, which would have been pre-Me Too movement. But it said in the article that it likely would have not gone to trial because of lack of evidence. However, Dan Snyder didn't want it to be
The
made
word
public.
out. Mm-hmm.
So that's why he offered a settlement. Now, I don't know who ended up going to the press, to the media, but here we are. Now we know what really happened. But given that happened in 2009, that there were these allegations against the owner, and then fast forward to the story that came out this summer about, like Rob B said, about 15 other, at least 15 other women who were making allegations not only against the owner, but other executives within the organization. You can't tell me that the NFL has not been aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
That this has not been on the NFL's radar. So it begs the question, Kevin Thaxton pointed out that we need to get rid of Dan Snyder. When does the league step in? The league stepped in the NBA when it came to getting rid of Donald Sterling because of his racist comments and his racist actions towards players and other people within the NBA. When does the league step in here?
But if you're saying there's not enough evidence to even go to trial, possibly, what is the
I
league?
thought they started the investigation, the league.
That was for Snyder. The allegations from the summer are still pending. Nothing has been decided with all of that stuff from the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a history. Now there's a paper trail.
Yeah.
There's a paper trail with this team, with this organization. So what is the NFL doing?
Yanni, you had something you were about to say?
No, I was just saying, I thought that the NFL was the one that began the investigation after those women came forward.
And it's still ongoing. But how long does it have to go on before you do something? Because like Neo said, there's been talk about this for a while now, especially as it relates to staffers, especially as it relates in addition to these two stories, there was another story about the NFL cheerleaders being accosted, being sexually harassed.
Yep.
About the Washington football team cheer. So we have three separate incidents here. And nothing really has been done except for a payment out to this young lady in 2009. So that was the first story that came out yesterday about my Washington football team. The second story is about our good old quarterback, Mr. Haskins, Mr. Dwayne Haskins. So Mr. Haskins, he came into the game on Sunday. Washington played the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday. They lost. Dwayne Haskins threw two critical interceptions. This was a winnable game. They lost by 5 points. This was a winnable game. He threw two critical interceptions. They eventually lost the game. And what did he do after the game? He went and got some scrippers, had them. Now there's some discrepancy as to whether or not he was at a strip club or whether or not they were in a hotel room. Bottom line is, whomever was at that party with him released photos of him along with at least 5 other strippers in close proximity, no mask. One of the strippers had her ass in his face, twerking, dangling for Christmas.
No it's not mask. Transmitted that way.
How do we know? Juices, COVID juices. Breaking protocol. And so, of course, people went ballistic over this. The team had to make a statement. The NFL made a statement. It was the big talk online. Former football players were making statements. Current Washington football team players were making statements. Dwayne Haskins has subsequently been fined $40,000. This is his second COVID violation of the season.
Hasn't he also been stripped of his captainship as a
He
result?
was stripped of his captaincy and fined $40,000. He originally was fined $5,000 in October for breaking protocol, because when they were in New York, he was at the team hotel and ordered a reservation for some of his friends to come to the hotel and party then. So again, my question is, what the hell is going on with the Washington football team?
All right, we're out of time, but 30 seconds, real quick. Your thoughts,
Faulty leadership.
Downey?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that I feel like because all of this stuff is coming out, I wouldn't be surprised if more came out in 2021 and then a big kaboom, maybe we'll get the answer we need. Yeah.
Robbie?
Yeah, really, it's faulty leadership. And the more that this story keeps evolving, the more people come forward and talk about it, then perhaps we'll see more action on the part of the NFL with the owners, either forcing them to sell because they are tainting the NFL brand at the end of the day. Their franchise is tainting the brand.
I think some of the comments, but some of the comments say it right. Obviously it has to do with leadership, but Jacqueline Robinson says, and yet he still has a job, talking about Dwayne Haskins, which speaks to the leadership.
The only reason why he has a job right now is because Alex Smith is hurt, and they don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. If this were mid-season and the starting quarterback was healthy, Haskins would be gone.
Jackson says Colin K needs a job.
Ooh. I said last year that Colin Kaepernick should come to Washington. He would be treated like a king here, 100%.
By the fans, by the fans, yeah. But do you remember why Doug Williams said why he wasn't coming? It was because of Trump. It was because of Trump's comments about Kaepernick and the NFL at the time.
Well, because and Dan Snyder is Trump's boy.
Mm-hmm,
Dan Snyder gave $1 million to Trump throughout the inauguration, the campaign, or whatever. So
So that's the reason that Kaepernick is not in DC, apparently, according to Doug Williams. Let's see. Damn, I'm just seeing this and logging in. This is Derek Johnson. Hi, Derek Johnston.
What's up, D?
Let's see. Derek Winter said, no, the culture of the NFL allows this rampant misbehavior. So, my friends, it is probably not just the Washington football team. Investigate the league. Jackson says the NBA might be more organized than NFL when it comes to ethics. And Ernest Cooper says, never. You can put that in all caps. That was a quote from Dan Snyder back in the day about changing the name.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but also to remember, one of the reasons why the name was changed was because sponsors started to pull out.
Yep.
Nike said that they were no longer going to sell Washington football team paraphernalia. It was FedEx Field. FedEx said that they were going to strip their name from all sponsorship for the team if they did not change the name. So now what are these sponsors going to say about all of this sex, strippers, and videotape that's going on in Washington?
All right, let's move on to the next one. So there's a lot going on. So